I got 4 kids. 3 of them have all these issues. I'm always at Cincinnati Children's doing this, doing that, doing the other. But then, like my son, you walk in and it's the hematology oncology ward, right? It's blood cancer unit is the unit that they're together, and you kind of like, oh, my kid's this and that, and then you walk into that ward and you see a 2-year-old that's got cancer, and you're like, oh, our life's not that bad,
right?
And so it gives you perspective, even in the midst of everything else you're dealing with. You still have this perspective of it could be worse, but as a parent, it's hard to see that because as a parent, I don't mind dealing with it. Like I whatever gets thrown my way, I'm just going to deal with it. That's fine. But the hard part as a parent is your kid are dealing with it.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jarrett Bass with Mark McCain, and you are listening to Triumph Every Day, where we discuss the journeys that shape the lives of our guests and how it brought them to where they are today. And we have a very special guest, Tavis McNair. Did I say that right?
You did. Yeah.
Tavis. There was a little while where we didn't know if it was Tavis or Tavis or Travis, yeah. And I'm like, did he misspell his waiver? Wasn't sure. So. Why don't you just take a little bit and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and all that kind of good stuff.
Sure. I'm originally from Northeast Ohio. Grew up in the Akron, Cleveland kind of area.
Northeast Ohio.
Yeah. So little there. I'm a Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Cavs fan. So a little depressing on all of those fronts. But so grew up there my whole life. All my family lives up there, and. Graduated from high school, played little sports in high school, and I graduated, went into Kent State University's pre-med program. So I was going to be a doctor, and then sophomore year in college, just felt I needed to go a different direction. So I unenrolled from school and found a Bible college in Louisville, Kentucky, and went there to pursue a degree in ministry. And so while I was there is when I met my wife, Tiffany, and dated for about a month and got engaged. And then about 6 months later, we got married. So
boom.
Just
nice
and fast. And so continued my education in Louisville, and then found a job down there, spent about 15 years in Louisville, and then moved up here about, I've been up here about 6.5 years now.
Very
so
cool.
Wife Tiffany, and then we've got 4 kids. So we've got a 13-year-old, which is scary.
Yeah, we can talk about that for probably an hour.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame right there. But yeah, 13, 11, 9, and 8.
Very cool.
So 2 boys and 2 girls.
Very cool. Whereabouts in Louisville did you live?
I lived on Fagenbush area, which was kind of the southeast side of town. Yeah. Louisville's a little crazy because you enter, if you drive down 75 or 71, like you're 100 miles outside Louisville, and you're entering Louisville. Right. It's like the entire area they consider Louisville,
right?
Which is a little bit strange, but
yeah, I actually enjoy Louisville quite a bit. I love the, it's cool to see like that kind of New Orleans flair they have there. Like kind of like it seems like you're a little bit farther south than you are.
Yep.
It's pretty cool, and I really enjoy going down there quite a bit. And what's really cool is, OTR in their own rights is picking up quite a bit, but it seems like their industrial sector, they just turned into restaurants.
Yeah.
Like
they did a really good job of building up a couple of the areas to attract.
It was really, really cool. Every time I go down there, it's just like anytime you go to OTR, something new is kind of moved in and taken up shop there. So it's been really fun to watch. What was the maybe deciding factor of going from Kent State to rolling into a basically Bible college?
Yeah, it's kind of a drastic. In some ways, it's a drastic,
especially at a younger age. I mean, I feel like a lot of people make that sense maybe a little bit later in life, and people go to college to like, I'm going to have the college experience, and that didn't sound like that was for you.
No, it never had. That was never my thing. I did well in school. So I enjoyed school, and I went on a retreat with my church, and that's when I just kind of felt my priorities shift, and I always wanted to help people, and so I was going into pre-med. I was going to be a pediatrician of some degrees, kind of where I was focusing, helping kids, and so making that shift into ministry wasn't as drastic as it might sound, because it's still helping people at its core.
Right.
It's just in a different way. And then the thing that really hit me is after I got back from that retreat, I went to class that next week, and I'm sitting in organic chemistry, and I'm going,
what am I doing?
I can't do this. Like this, it doesn't feel like the right place to be. And I think that was just more of a confirmation of what I had already known that I needed to do. And so that's kind of where that came from.
Jeff Ryan, if you've gotten a chance to talk to him, again, kind of an inspiration for this entire podcast. He was, he's told us, he's like, you really make a decision, with your head. He's like, but you really don't make it until your heart catches up with your head.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's true. Because looking back in high school and middle school, they always have you do those like, what do you want to be when you grow up kind of stuff. And always, because my mom saved everything, which she just gave me all that stuff the other day. I hope she didn't listen to this. But
Mom, I love you.
Yeah. Put in the trash. I don't want all this stuff. I'm not a hoarder. But in looking back on all that stuff, my top two things were always something in medicine, something in ministry, something helping people. And so looking back on it, it makes sense. But yeah, it was kind of a confirmation when I got to college that I did the pre-med thing for a year and had a lot of friends who were still in that program, and it was just like, it's just not. Yeah. It's just not for me.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So did you pursue and see that all the way through? The Bible college?
Yeah. So I graduated with a bachelor's degree, and then I went on and got a master's degree, and then I went on and got a PhD, from the same. It's kind of that same institution.
Now, as far as where you are today, are you still using that?
So I'm the operations pastor over at Florence Baptist Church, that church right there on Mount Zion Road. So I handle all the finances, facilities. So a little different focus. I did student ministry for about 18 years. So dealt with a lot of teenagers, a lot of families. Loved doing that. And then when I moved up here to accept the job up here, it was a little bit of a shift as far as ministry focus. And so I deal with more of the admin side of ministry now, which I like. I enjoy that. But I also get to deal with people and do that side too. So, but yeah, so I'm still putting it together. The PhD was technically in leadership. So that's kind of a broad spectrum of things.
You can be a leader in a million different ways. It's one thing that Mark and I found out, a long time ago, and still trying to define exactly what that looks like for us.
Yeah, and you read a leadership book, and you're like, oh, that's what it is. You read another one, oh, that's what it is. It's just about dealing with people. I mean, that's really all it is. So.
The church I go to, one time they brought up an interesting point. If you search on Amazon for leadership books, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's just say there's 10 times as many books on leadership, as opposed to followership, if that's a word.
Yeah.
So I think it's, to your point, I think there's just so many books on leadership, and there's not enough on like followership sometimes. But and I'm sure you have probably contrasted those throughout your journey and so on and so forth. But yeah, I feel like sometimes there's probably even situations where you find yourself like, you know what, I'm going to let this person lead and I'm going to follow, or vice versa in certain scenarios. But I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting point to bring up, because kind of like you said, in this day and age where we're just constantly inundated with information, it's hard to discern in certain situations. Like, I don't know, is it like the drill sergeant leader? Is that what, we butt up against this as trainers, Jarrett. It's like, some people want us to yell at them. Some people want us to like calm them down.
Some people will not respond well if you yell in their face.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you see that in sports too. You see some of the old school coaches, and they're not getting the results that they used to get, because it feels like the newest generation of athletes they want to be a little more coddled, a little bit more come beside them and encourage them. And some of these coaches that are yell screamers, it doesn't necessarily translate all the time. So typically your best coaches are going to be the ones that can adapt
multifaceted
to the different personalities on your team. And that's one of the things I learned from my high school basketball coach. He was a tremendous coach, tremendous leader, but everybody was treated differently as far as how he communicated to them. We're all treated the same as far as fairness and whatever, but as far as how he approached you, how he communicated, he treated everybody differently based on their personality, based on how they responded. And I picked up a lot of really good things from him.
So,
for sure.
I know, being in student leadership and dealing with a lot of teenagers and things like that. How does that carry over into having 4 kids?
Well, yeah, my wife and I talk about this all the time because she actually got a degree at the Bible college, the bachelor in youth ministry as well. So she served alongside me for when we were married. I think it was 10 or 11 years at that specific student ministry that she served in. And we talk about it all the time because it's when you're dealing with teenagers all the time, you have a very good understanding of what teenagers go through and how they respond and behave to parents, and you see all the different family dynamics of broken homes and solid homes, and homes where one parent goes to church, the other one doesn't, homes where neither of them go to church, homes where they both, homeschool versus public school versus private, and you see all these different scenarios,
perspective,
and you see kids that thrive in all the different types of areas and kids who don't thrive in all the different, and you're like, what is the common denominator? And really it just comes down to the communication between the parents and the kids and how they're just interacting at home, and so you have 150 kids that you're dealing with on a weekly basis, but then they go home at night. Whereas now I have 4 kids that I'm dealing with on a daily basis, but they come home with me.
Right.
And so it's that constant life battle struggle of emotions going up and down. My 13-year-old now.
Say 13 is right at that age where things get really complicated.
It does, and it's like a switch that goes off, and there's just hormones going through his body that he can't control.
Sure.
And so as a parent, the one thing that's nice about having dealt with students for all those years is you don't overreact to it, because it's part of it. Because if you go back to your middle school days, you probably blacked most of those out because it's not typically the highlight of your life, so to speak.
It's awkward.
So you go back and think, what did I do in middle school? Like, I blocked most of those years out, so you don't really remember what you did and what you put your parents through. So having Ian at home with us right now as a 13-year-old, just like, all right, just calm down.
My wife's a middle school teacher.
Yeah, so she's right in it.
6 years, into that journey, and she went from a private school to a public school, and talk about some perspective. Whenever you obviously at a private school, they're paying a premium for their son or daughter's education, and the parents tend to be a little more invested. And now she's at a school where every single student is on paid lunch, so sponsored lunch. A little lower income, and she sees a lot of students that their parents aren't active in their life, and whenever they, recent example that pops to mind is she had, I think, 20-some students that were failing, and she had to call each one of their parents, and I said, well, how many do you get through to? And she says, about 50%. So it's, and obviously you, I know you guys are going a little different route with this. Do you guys do homeschooling?
We are right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but that had a lot to do with some medical issues with our kids.
Yeah.
And so that kind of took us to the route of home. It was either homeschool or don't school kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so we're not, actually we just had this conversation last night, because Ian, he's a 7th grader. He wants to go to high school because he wants to play soccer for high school. And obviously around here, if you're homeschooled, you can't play on high school teams. And so, he's kind of right at that age where we're like, okay, now we've got to make that next decision for him to see what we want to do with that. But
yeah, I did want to dive into that a little bit because I know you have 2 children kind of with some different health issues.
Yeah, I've got 3 of the 4 have some challenges medically.
Yeah. You don't have to dive super deep into that, but maybe just your experience kind of with that and how you deal with, different challenges daily.
Sure. Yeah, so Ian, our oldest, he's the healthiest, and he's also I would call the wimpiest as far as like when something does happen to him, he's like he freaks out. He's like, "Come on, man! Like you got your toe stubbed. Like we're not talking. We're not talking major."
It's funny you say that. We literally just you're our second podcast for the week. We just talked to Sarah Freeman, and her son had to have most of his colon removed and things like that, and for him, you can just tell it gives him a different perspective on life.
Yeah,
for sure. He's not at 20 years old. Okay, George. At 20 years old, he's not taking life for granted, and you don't usually learn that till much later on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you don't get that perspective. So he's totally healthy. Our second born, his name's Nathaniel. He's 11, but he has a rare bleeding disorder, and so it's kind of like von Willebrand. It is von Willebrand's. It's kind of like hemophilia, but basically his body doesn't produce the clotting factor that causes you to stop bleeding. Mm-hmm. So if he starts bleeding, he doesn't like bleed out, but he would eventually because his body won't stop. And so when that happens, you've got to take him into the hospital. They've got to do an infusion, and then that gets the clotting factor into his body, and then his body can stop bleeding. Mm-hmm. So over the years, I can't tell you the amount of hospital trips we've taken up to Cincinnati Children's just for things like nosebleeds, losing a tooth, normal stuff. Falls down on the ground, scrapes his knee.
Wow.
It's just not going to stop bleeding. So again, it's not like he's got to get there in the next 10 minutes or he's going to die, but it's just not going to stop. And so the concern with him is internal bleeding. And so the biggest thing that we struggle with him is just how do you let him be a boy and not be stupid as parents and put him in situations. So right now he's playing soccer, which every time we tell his hematologist that, they roll their eyes like, I can't believe you're letting him do that. But it's just part of our balance as a family saying
it's part of your balance is being empathetic towards him as a human.
Correct. Right. And we've had these conversations like, hey bud, this might be your last year playing soccer because this is the first year where he's allowed to head the ball, which he's not. Mm-hmm. But like he's on the soccer field and everyone else is heading the ball, and when he doesn't, all his teammates are like, "Hey, head the ball." And they're like, then they know he can't. Yeah. But in the moment of the game, they kind of do that. So the great thing about Nate is he learned how to give himself infusions, and so
how old is he?
He's 11.
Oh crap!
So
what's infusion mean?
I got a shot the other day and passed out. So.
Yeah. So an infusion, you put the tourniquet on. You get the medicine ready, you put the needle in your arm, and you slowly inject the medicine into your arm and pull it out, and then you clean it up and do the whole thing. So he's
talking about having to grow up fast.
Yeah. And so, it's very cool to see that. So the great thing about that is when he gets nosebleeds now, we don't have to go to the ER. So that's a real cool thing. So that's kind of him. He's, and he's dealt with it really good. He's got a great spirit, but he's super inquisitive about medical stuff now. So
you already start to see him like going down this path.
You really could. He's some sort of medical something, whether it's researching.
That's how some people that aren't like, it's not like, well, my dad and my grandpa and my mom, they were all doctors.
Yeah.
It's usually from some type of ailment maybe that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's cool. And then my 9-year-old girl, her name's Clara, she was diagnosed with either Crohn's or colitis when she was about 18 months old. So she got in the hospital when she was 18 months old, almost died, had to do a couple blood transfusions. But through that process, they diagnosed her with that disease. And then when she was five or six, I can't remember, we had her colon removed. So we did that, and then now she was just hospitalized a couple months ago for about 6 weeks, kind of dealing with all those issues. So, but she's the toughest of the bunch. You would never know it looking at her.
She's in here, like ready to throw down
as much as she can be. She's in here. She loves it. She'll probably be back this weekend because there's no soccer tournaments, and so she's just, again, it's just part of that. And then our other daughter, she's 8. We adopted her from Congo. So we brought her home and then found out within about 6 months that she had severe hearing loss. So we kind of started going through that process. She had cochlear implant put in one ear, hearing aid in the other ear. And then we took her to a specialized school for about 3.5 years, about an hour from here, drive there every day, which led us to the homeschool, because you can't drive your daughter an hour every day
Sure.
and then put your kids on the bus.
Right.
So
be getting up at 3 a.m. every day.
Yeah, you just can't. Yeah, you just can't do it. So that kind of led us down that path. But the crazy thing is when you go to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and sometimes you think, man, my kid, no one else has this problem. Like, I got 4 kids, 3 of them have all these issues. I'm always at Cincinnati Children's doing this, doing that, doing the other. But then, like my son, you walk in and it's the hematology oncology ward, right? It's blood cancer unit is the unit that they're together, and you kind of like, oh, my kid's this and that, and then you walk into that ward and you see a 2-year-old that's got cancer.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, our life's not that bad.
Right.
So it gives you perspective, even in the midst of everything else you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You still have this perspective of it could be worse. But as a parent, it's hard to see that because as a parent, I don't mind dealing with it. Like I whatever gets thrown my way, I'm just going to deal with it. That's fine. But the hard part as a parent is your kid you're dealing with it. Mm-hmm. So my one son, it's a genetic disorder. He's always going to have that bleeding disorder. It's never going to go away. My daughter's always going to have Crohn's. It doesn't go away. My other daughter's always going to be deaf. It doesn't go away. I can deal with it, but it's trying to teach them how to deal with it and have a good outlook on life and not be a woe is me person. So that I think that's been the biggest probably challenge for our family. Is how to navigate that.
But when I look at you guys, like I just see a family who is dealing with it. Like, there is no throwing your hands up in the air going, oh my gosh, woe is us.
Right.
Like you said, it's all about perspective. And that's one of the things we try and preach here so much, which is just like, guys, it's, your fraying time doesn't matter. The fact that you can be here, being part of this community and exercising matters.
Yeah.
So I think, and I commend you guys for being that having that family structure that can really, back your kids, and I'm sure they kind of buttress you just as much as you help them out.
I'm sure, yeah, and they always give us good perspective. Like, even this last time with my daughter being in the hospital, like, you're tired, you're not sleeping well, you're sleeping on those stupid pull-out couches that aren't really couches, and you're rotating shifts and all this kind of stuff, and then you look at your daughter and they bring a dog into the hospital room, and it's like the best thing that's ever happened to her in her life. She sits with a dog for an hour, and she doesn't care about all these other tubes and everything else coming out. It's like, I'm happy with the dog sitting right here. And at that moment, you're like, oh, okay, we're good. So it's...
You can borrow George anytime you want.
She would love that. She would absolutely. That was actually, we had to do this 8 weeks of nothing but shakes that she could drink.
Yeah.
And part of the leverage, once we got past about week 4, was trying to find stuff. And so one of the things was she could dog sit for the day.
Oh, very cool.
And so she really liked that.
Very cool. Not to completely switch gears, but you, not only you pretty amazing father and holding down the family, but you're also a ultra marathoner.
I have dabbled in the ultra marathon.
What's wrong with you?
I've asked myself. I ask myself that a lot, and my wife asks me that all the time when I'm getting ready for.
Let's kind of
race,
backtrack.
So.
How does this interest even start? You just don't like say I'm
you
gonna
also,
go run.
Yeah, I was about to say you don't dabble in ultra marathoning.
Yeah,
you start off like running like a half and then a full.
All right, so
it's 50 miles or more, or the ultra is 100.
Yeah, so ultra is anything over a marathon, which is 26.2.
Okay.
So you could have
I would consider a regular marathon pretty ultra.
Yeah, it is, but in the ultra world, and then you've got your 50Ks, 100Ks, 100 mile, 50 mile, and then you've got the stupid like 24 hours as far as you can go. They
just came out with a 500 miler.
Yeah, well they have a ultra triathlon, which is 3 triathlons, 3 back to back, which is stupid. So I have a little bit of OCD in me, a little bit of obsessiveness with my personality, and that manifests itself across the board.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be healthy, and I'm not saying like I'm diagnosed OCD. I'm self-diagnosed.
You're very type A.
Very type A. Very.
You and I are one and the same. Not only just haircuts.
Yeah, I'm a very type A, but I'm also very like chill. It's a weird dynamic, but I'm very OCD. So if I start something, that's what it is. So high school I played basketball, a little bit of other sports and stuff. Got into college, did the intramural stuff, and then got out of college, and I just kind of wasn't wasn't really being active anymore. The basketball, open gym stuff that I was doing, they kind of shut down. So I kind of found myself sitting around a lot. And so I'm like, okay, I need to start doing something. So I just started running. And my dad ran all through my life. He was a big runner. And so I'm like, oh, that's not, anyone can run. So I just started running and kind of started enjoying that. So I signed up for my first marathon down in Louisville with a buddy of mine.
When you say you just started running, like, what was the first distance you went out and ran?
Oh, probably like a mile.
Okay.
Yeah. So real short. Just, but I started doing it, and I started doing it every day. So I'd run maybe a mile every day, and then I increased my mileage, and then as I'm doing it, I'm learning how to run better, getting better technique, better form, going through a bunch of different shoes, types of. I mean, and again, because of my OCD, I'm watching videos on how to run, and I'm reading books on how to run, and what is the best shoes to run in, and all this kind of stuff.
What is the best shoe that you found for you?
For me, I like the shoes that have no cushion, no padding, no anything.
What'd you kind of run with?
Zero drop?
So zero drop shoes. So the brand I run in is called Zero Shoes.
Yeah.
Vivo Barefoot's also another brand that I like.
Did you ever run into Ultras?
I tried the Ultras. They didn't fit my foot.
Really?
So I've tried the Ultras 4 different times, and I can't do it. I run in the 5-finger shoes.
Yeah.
And I also run barefoot, like just straight up barefoot.
I saw a guy. I was went and rode my bike the other day down around Lincoln Airport, and this dude's just jogging along barefoot.
Yeah.
On the sidewalk.
Yeah, I ran yesterday barefoot for about 3 miles.
We also did. It's not really exercise in a sense, but we hiked Crowpatrick in Ireland, which is the Catholic pilgrimage.
Okay.
Where it's the hardest 4-mile hike I've ever done. It's about a 32% grade, and it's takes about 3.5 hours, and it's just all about head-size boulders, and the real hardcore Catholics do it barefoot. Nice. And we saw a guy just walking up this thing barefoot. I couldn't feel my feet anymore, and I was in hiking shoes.
Now, when you get to the top, do you take a bus back down? Or do you have to walk back?
You just walk back down.
That's the worst part. That'd be the worst part especially if you go barefoot up. You're like, you got there and then you got to come back.
Yeah, just roll down.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
I started dabbling the running. Signed up for a marathon. First marathon did not go well. I was going over the bridge in between Louisville and Indiana, and my buddy always makes fun of me because I stopped, and as I'm puking up blue Powerade, a guy with a wheelchair passes me. So it's kind of like add insult to injury there. But I finished it and couldn't walk. I couldn't even walk to the car. So that was a little humbling experience there.
What would you chalk that up to? Was it poor preparation or
just I didn't train enough?
Too much Powerade.
Yeah, too much. Well, definitely too much Powerade. I didn't train enough. I ran with my buddy who had already run several marathons, and so on the long days, you're supposed to run 18. We got out there. He's like, oh, I'm feeling 12, and so okay. I don't know any better.
Right.
And so
and you're like, oh, that's a third of. It's less than half the difference.
Which that's good to do. You're listening to your body. Except when you do that every week, you're supposed to do a long run. That's bad. Yeah, and so, and I didn't have my base built up yet, so I didn't have any years and years of running to kind of tap into during the race. I had 6 months to tap into, so so that didn't go well. But I enjoyed running so much that I just kept running. And then what I actually ended up doing was I would train for marathons with friends of mine, and then I wouldn't run the marathon because I didn't enjoy the race day. I enjoyed the training,
right?
Probably because of my OCD stuff again. So I did that for a while, moved up here. I started to get in triathlon a little bit. Swimming was the big thing. I had a buddy that started teaching me how to swim, and then that's when I moved up here. So I didn't find a pool, so I kind of quit the triathlon. So I kept running, and then I got into trail running, Idlewild, Mount Airy in this area, which was a lot of fun, a little different on your feet and stuff. And then so I started doing that for a while, and then I just kind of came across, this idea of an ultra run. I'm like, hey, that sounds fun. So of course I sign up for one, and then I'm like, well, now I got to figure out how to train for it. And so at this point I've been running for maybe 8-9 years, so I've got a good base that I'm built up on. And so now it's just a matter of pushing your body and your mind to go beyond what you think it can go. And so about 3 years ago I did a 50-miler over at Scott County, Indiana, through the park over there.
How much of that is physical versus mental?
That's a good question. I think your body can do more things if you can kind of tell your mind to just let it do it. And so, with the ultra, I got to about mile 32. I was feeling really good. And I got to about mile 32 and I went, I'm not feeling very good. I also got lost during the race, which is not recommended for an ultra. So I ended up running about 53, 54 miles.
Ouch.
So those last 15, 20 miles, it was all mental. Your body can move. You just have to force it to move.
Yeah.
So what are you telling yourself in that moment?
You're trying to block out the pain, and you're just trying to tell yourself one more mile. And so you just try to stay focused on the next mile, the next mile, the next mile.
Yep. I really tell people to, just to akin it to something in here. Murph's always a big one for people where, and it's like, have these little hash marks in your head. Like if you're doing in Murph, for example, you come back from your run, 20 rounds of Cindy, 5, 10, 15, like have those little hash marks in your head. Because then it's like, I'm never going to get there. Then all of a sudden you're, okay, I'm a quarter of the way through.
Yeah.
All right, I'm half of the way through.
Yeah, if you're 30 miles in, you go, I'm only just over halfway.
Yeah.
That's not a good mental state.
You have to think about it some other way.
Yeah, you got to. Okay, the next, I'm only doing a 5K, which is 3.2 miles.
Right.
Or I'm only going to do, so you're trying to break that up. The cool thing about that race was for the first 20, 30 miles, there's people with you.
Yeah.
And then most people broke off at the 25 mile, and that was they were doing a 30-mile run.
Gotcha.
So then the last 25, 30 miles, it was kind of alone, which I'm more of an introvert.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the reasons why I like running, is it's just you and the road, you and your mind. I don't listen to music. I can't do any of that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of freeing for me. I'm able to think through things. And
what's the pain you're kind of enduring?
The biggest pain on that specific run were blisters on my feet because I had run through some water prematurely because when I got lost,
nope.
I went that way.
Game over for me.
So that was huge, and then my quads kind of blew out, and so it was one of those things where like there was a log in the middle of the trail, like, just normal log. And it's like you're like trying to get your leg to move like over it.
Concrete.
And they just feel like concrete. So those were the two for me physically. Those were the two. Like I was breathing fine. I have some exercise induced asthma I've had forever. I didn't have an inhaler with me. I didn't have any problem with that. But I'm more of a long, slow kind of,
Is it kind of emotional when you finish?
It is. It's kind of like a release of like, man, I can't believe I was able to, to just do that. And you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple race directors that are there that are cheering you on. And Tiffany came with me, and so she was bored out of her mind all day because I was on my feet. I think it took me 12 hours to do it.
You get done. She's like, all right, honey, let's go. You're like, yeah, man.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, about time. Like I've been here for.
The only reason I asked about the emotional part is I did Chris actually signed me up for a Spartan Beast.
Oh yeah.
And I don't run. I can run, but I had just kind of like you said, like I had a really good day of running, which is just weird. Like I just felt really good, and for whatever reason, I finished and just like had this like wave of emotion. I finished by myself. Like Chris was with his cousin, kind of helping him along, and finished by myself. And it was very, very difficult for the last like 2 miles, and it was just really weird. I just had this wave of emotion come over me. It's only 14 miles, but I ran the whole thing. That's
a long run, and you're not expecting the emotional.
Yeah, it was just weird. That's the reason I asked, because I just crossed the finish line. It was just like, like pent up, feelings from when I was like 7th grade or something. They all come out for some weird reason. Yeah, it's the only reason I asked.
That's inexplicable, sometimes. But that's a good question. Because I feel like, in life, obviously, you're going through trials daily with your, at home. Some days obviously more severe than others. But I think it's just so important that you do have this time to, as you said, it's, and let's call it what it is. It's therapy.
Yeah.
You're having your own little therapy sessions in your head out there on the road. But do you find yourself, what I want to say, you have these experiences, you're almost building that inventory of wow, like I'm more confident now in my just endeavors in life through building a surplus of, callousing your own mind. That's what Goggins always says. That's an ultra marathon guy. Through his experiences, the day-to-day stuff isn't as challenging. Do you find any carryover there?
Yeah, you certainly do. For the training for the 50-miler race, there's a couple 30-plus runs that I did. And I'm training in January, February because the race was in, I think it was an April race. So I'm outside running 30 miles through my neighborhood and through Triple Crown and all those, and you're running 30 miles and it's snow up to your knees if you step off the road, and people are shoveling their driveways and they're looking at you like, this guy's an idiot. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right, I am. But just doing that gives you those benchmarks to say, okay, I just ran 32 miles in the snow.
Right.
What's another 10 miles? And then you get home and you're like, okay, it's midnight and my son just got a nosebleed. All right, I got to drive 25, 30 minutes up to Cincinnati Children.
Those big things just become every day. You said, those benchmarks, they become easier to deal with.
Yeah, and mentally that, hey, it's going to get better. Tomorrow you're going to be sore, and then the next day your body's going to recover. Yep. And as long as you're not being stupid with how you're training, you can keep yourself from getting injured for the most part. And so you build up those small victories, and then those lead to bigger victories, and then the other things in life. It's just and again, those are the types of things you're trying to instill in your kids. Mm-hmm. How do you get your child who doesn't have any, and none of our kids in life have issues that live in the United States. I mean, for the most part, we're all fortunate.
We're in the 1%.
So how do you get them to understand the value of hard work, and how do you get them to understand the value of pushing yourself when you don't feel like it? And so I think these types of things, signing them up for races and getting them in CrossFit and getting them in sports, I think those are stepping stones for them that hopefully one day will help them solidify some of those things.
It sounds like they already are in that path, just kind of what you described.
Yeah, some of them are. Yeah, they're on that way. But that's what we're trying, as a family, that's what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a couple defining moments whenever I was kind of growing up that kind of formed me into maybe just a little more of a confident kind of athlete. I remember when we would play Little League, baseball, there was that one pitcher that threw, no one could hit, and it's just you just get that foul nip off of that one pitch. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the floodgates really open. In a particular game I'm thinking of, every game we'd play this team, it would end 1-0. And then that one game where we started hitting them, all of a sudden, we get 10 hits. I remember one time on the football field, I'll never forget it. It was, junior year, and probably up to that point, I played a little bit tentative on the defensive side whenever I have to make tackles. And I remember, in particular, it was the first game of the year. I actually didn't even play my soccer year, so I was kind of coming back, didn't really know what to expect. Felt like I was playing pretty good, and we were going up against this team. They had a running back that was 220 pounds, and he was, state champion wrestler and all this stuff. And it was a defining moment. I'll never forget it. And I was on a blitz, and I absolutely destroyed him. And I don't say it to brag or anything, but it was when you talk about hey, how do I build this winning kind of mentality in my kids? It's through experiences. Yeah. And you can lead them so far, but they have to experience these things and be faced with the decision of, hey, I could really run and aggressively try to, in this situation, tackle this guy, or I can kind of curl up and just kind of go at his legs. And, there's no doubt in my mind that one play created me to be a pretty strong force on our defense that year, because I did what I didn't think was possible. Yeah. And that was to tackle the big kid. And I know that might not be, a 100-mile race, or whatever, but again, it was one of those experiences that was a big win. It's kind of like CrossFit, right? I mean, I know we at least myself, I know Jared's, probably been there as well, and you can speak to this a little bit. When we're invited into this kind of uncomfortable warehouse-looking gym, and we're like, oh, I gotta climb this rope, that's impossible. And then all of a sudden, you make it, a couple feet up, and then you're all the way up, and then other things don't look as daunting.
Except for muscle ups.
Yeah, muscle ups.
Yeah, except for that. Yeah.
You'll get there, don't worry.
I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
Well, I got one more question just about the ultra marathon. I actually do want to move into CrossFit and how that fits into where you're at now as far as fitness and family and stuff like that. What does your recovery look like after an ultramarathon race? What'd you eat?
Well,
do you have just a massive blowout meal? That's maybe my first thing.
No, actually, honestly, okay, so I got in the car and we drove to, I think it was like a shopping area, had a McDonald's and a Penn Station and a Jimmy John's and stuff like that. So I went in.
Three?
No, I went in and changed, because it was, you just get clean clothes on, and then we walked into Jimmy John's, and I got my normal like turkey and cheese and bacon sandwich, bag of chips, and I think a water or something, whatever. And we got out to the car. I'm like, all right, let's drive back, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I took the first bite, and I literally couldn't swallow the food. And I don't know if it was just because I was so exhausted. I don't know but I literally couldn't swallow this, and I had to spit it out. And so it actually took me about 12 to 15 hours for me before I could eat anything.
So it's like your body's in this mode of like survival.
It was almost like that. And so I could barely walk up the stairs. Walking down the stairs was worse than walking up the stairs. Stupid simple tasks like sitting down to tie your shoes hurt for like a week. But as far as food, it took me until like lunch the next day.
Wow.
Before I could eat anything.
So you have been with us for a while now. Like you said, Tiffany's coming here. You've got the kids coming to community class with you on the weekends. And how did you find us, and what role is CrossFit playing, and maybe has it shifted your goals, or is it kind of accentuating your goals of still doing long distance running,
sure,
things like that?
Yeah. So as I was running, I primarily just ran. I didn't do any kind of strength training. I didn't do anything. I just ran. And then about 2 years ago, I'm like, you know what? I probably need to do some strength training. I hadn't done it since high school, so I joined like Crunch or one of those. What's the one where it's like no judgment? What's that one?
Planet Fitness.
That one. I joined that one. And
Pizza Thursdays.
In fact,
and brisket Wednesdays.
Yeah. So I started doing that, but I had a hard time finding the right routine, and I'm more of a free weight person, and they had more machines. Like, this isn't really fitting. And so I actually came here one night for Ian's soccer practice with Keith.
Oh, that's right.
And so, and actually the night that they came, the very first night they came, there was a mix-up, because normally in the evenings, obviously you guys aren't here, but that particular evening was one of the ones where CrossFit had just put out one of their open workouts.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was like 7 or 8 people here doing the open workout, and then there's like 13 middle school boys doing like soccer practice. And so I walked in, and I just sat there and I just watched what was going on. And obviously I'd heard of CrossFit. I'd never tried to experience CrossFit, never really thought about it, honestly, other than, man, those guys can lift a lot of weights and run really far, all kind of stuff. And so that kind of opened my eyes to, this is kind of looks like kind of fun. And so I started talking to Keith about it a little bit, and he's like, oh yeah, you can come on over. And so it was about a month or so later, I sent in the requests on the website and met up with, I think, Mark for the first time, and came in and just fell in love with the idea of CrossFit, being, it's got the endurance aspect. Like, so there's aerobic, there's anaerobic, there's athleticism involved, but then the weightlifting piece of it too, just lifting weights, climbing ropes, that kind of stuff. And so I came in and experienced it for myself and just absolutely fell in love with it. Love the idea that you can get up and come and someone else has already programmed what you're going to do. You don't have to think about, is this the best thing for me? Am I using too many of my, did I just do curls for the 5th day in a row? Did, someone else was pre-planning that, which for me and my schedule and what I'm doing, that's fantastic. And so, so that's kind of where that started.
How'd you sucker Tiffany into coming?
Well, that's interesting because typically I try to sucker her into stuff. Yeah. And so like the eve of when our daughter went into the hospital for the first time, 14 years ago, whatever it was, it was the eve before the Louisville mini marathon, and I had suckered her into running the mini marathon. And so I've always tried to do that, but this time around I didn't do that. So I just started doing it, and then one day she's like, "Hey, I think I want to try CrossFit with you." I'm like, "Fantastic, come on, come on over." So she did it, and she really enjoys it, and it's something honestly at this point in our marriage that we can do together. And it's really fun because, again, I'm not the coach, so I'm not telling her what to do. And if I do, she
never
very
coach your wife or girlfriend.
yeah. She really quickly tells me, that's not your job. Okay, so I've kind of, I've certainly back away from that, and so we started doing it, and then we bring our kids in as much as possible. So as far as overall, I think CrossFit for me, it provides the balanced approach to longevity that I'm looking for. Weightlifting being very good for when you're older, having that muscle mass, the athletic, the running, the bike that I hate so much, but that kind of stuff that gives you the right now kind of athleticism. And then as far as running goes, that's been the biggest hurdle for me, because trying to find time to run. But then also
you just physically can't run 32 miles in an hour.
No, you can't. There's not enough time to do it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And also you're trying to balance you don't want to somehow diminish what CrossFit's doing for you.
Sure.
And so that's been the biggest struggle for me.
So your goals have shifted a little bit.
They have.
Yeah.
They have. And I kind of knew that going into CrossFit. And I'll probably try to do an ultra of some sort next year just mainly to see, okay, I'm primarily doing CrossFit. Let's sprinkle in a little running, and then let's just go try to run like 30 miles and see what happens.
There's the
kind of an experiment.
2009 Greg Almanson article, Run a Mile to Run 100, where he bet his friend that he could run 100 miles doing just main site programming, and he ran 100 miles in 24 hours.
Yeah, which is
phenomenal. I think the most he ran in any given workout was 1 mile throughout the entire year. So it just goes to show that, I'm sure he didn't feel fantastic, but at the same time, like, it can absolutely be done, and for someone like you who's had some experience, I would be very interested to see what that feels like.
Follow a podcast.
Yeah, follow a podcast if you go do one.
I'll be all big old bandages and wrapped around. But
that'd be interesting too, right? Just find out the recovery from that compared to, I've got a little more muscle, on my body and whatnot, and how that exactly responds.
Right. When you look at, obviously, like you said, your goals have shifted just a little bit. What's kind of on the horizon for you outside of maybe possibly trying to run that ultramarathon next year?
Well, a muscle up would be nice. And honestly, I just trying to get back into these Olympic lifting things. I haven't done any of that really since high school. Squatting, back squats, deadlifts. I don't know that I ever really did cleans. I think we did a little bit of that. So that's all just been fascinating just from a challenging perspective.
Well, and talking about your personality where you want to be a little bit of a perfectionist, it gives you a whole new world, to quote Aladdin, of just things to work on.
Yeah.
And that it's like you get this, you're introduced as an adult to a realm that was completely foreign to you, just a couple months ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the thing about CrossFit is once you master the skill, then you increase the weight, or you increase the reps, or you go faster, or you.
It never gets easier.
It never gets easier. Yeah. So Tiffany's like, when am I ever not sore? I'm like, that's the beauty of CrossFit. You're always sore. Like sore. That's just part of.
Well, one thing to your guys' credit, you and Tiffany for that matter, you're both very coachable, and that bodes for improvement faster than if you did want to go the route
risk of injury, and because neither of you are jumping in here and just assuming that I can just do this.
Definitely not. Yeah,
because one, and unfortunately that's I think where CrossFit gets such a bad rap is people are not coachable, and the people coaching them are not being relentless enough and saying no, stop that. Just you need to take a step back. We're blessed to have a lot of people here who really see the value in like playing the long game. Yeah. There is no like I said, when we tell people all the time, and the fundamentals class is like, this is like learning a brand new language. Like try to go learn French in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a long time to master that. So why would you think that just because I did cleans in high school, I'm fine with these.
That was 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, getting old. Yeah, I used to think, man, I'm doing good at CrossFit. Like for my age, I was like, for my age, I'm doing really good. And then I realized that Matt and Steve and Scotty and Chris, they're like all within like that same age range. I'm like, oh man, that's okay.
And then even crazier when you look at the top tier men and women that are just like, oh, you're a master's, but you've been doing this for 12 years now.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in longevity for that kind of stuff.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, let's just say around the time you maybe been here a year or so, and we're onboarding someone new around your age and size, and they're going to be looking at you like, man, look at that guy, like, and you're in your mind, you're still going to be like, I'm way far behind, because it is that low hanging fruit is always that comparison to like people our size or age, whatever it may be. But again, just kudos to you for your attitude and your relentlessness to be here. I mean, you're, I don't know, 5 days a week at least, probably.
I try.
Yeah, 5 days.
Really hard. Yeah.
With all the things you got going on at home and work and travel, and yeah, it's been really cool to watch you develop.
I don't know if you've gotten a chance to listen to many of these, but we always like to ask that kind of towards the end question of just very simple, just what is your definition of success?
Yeah. Specifically for CrossFit, my definition of success would be just show up and do the movement. I'm always joking with the coaches, like, I might be able to do the women RX movement today. I might not be able to get even that heavy, but that doesn't bother me. That's what I love about the gym is there really is. It's all about encouraging and showing up. So success in CrossFit to me is that, and I just think in life, success is, whatever life throws at you, you just deal with it and move on. Like, as long as you don't stay down, you're going to get knocked down, but as long as you don't stay there, I think you're being successful. And it doesn't matter what situation that is. Everyone's looks different, but just taking it and moving on and learning from it. I think that's a good definition of success, because then everybody can be successful in whatever they're doing.
Yeah, you're not comparing yourself to someone else.
No, and you can't compare yourself because you don't know what they're going through.
Exactly.
You no idea.
I heard something the other day, and I've seen it a couple times in a couple different ways. I thought was interesting, which is just, everyone has a different starting line. Like your starting point may not be as soon as you graduate from college. Some people get that dream job right out of college, but most don't. You may not have your starting line until 35. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Some people graduate college, believe it or not, and they're $100,000 in debt.
Yeah.
You never.
Yeah. Oh, they have their dream job, and they're going to be paying off that debt for a long time.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. But man, thank you very much for coming and sharing your experience, and and being a part of this community, and
I appreciate
bringing Tiffany and the family in. I mean, it's having the type of people you guys are around us just makes this place that much better. So
appreciate that.
What about the guest?
Oh, this is George. This is our foster.
Someone wants a good dog.
He is wonderful. He actually sat here for the most part for the entire hour.
He's available.
He is available. Adorable.
Hit our YouTube for video evidence.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks again, Tavis. Appreciate it. And thank you all for listening to Triumph Every Day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and everywhere else your podcasts are found. You can find us at triumphstrength.net, on Instagram at triumphstrength, and Facebook at facebook.com/triumphstrength. See you guys next week. Thank you.